Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report, and joining me, Ryan. And Ryan, we're deep into spring now, and I like to do this question once in a while. What would you select as being the top nutraceuticals for spring? Sports, weight loss, getting yourself back in tip-top shape, getting your brain in tip-top shape. What would you recommend as the top nutraceuticals to start with?
Well, I think for a lot of people, when it comes to spring, they're feeling that warm air and thinking about, summer, swimming pools, and all those kind of things, and that makes me think weight loss, bathing suit season, things like that. And I think when you look at a product that a lot of people really do need to introduce, it's using glycemic meal, because that's such a great formulation, not only as a meal replacement, but a lot of people need good, healthy alternative to, junk foods and just poor quality nutrients that they're getting in most of their foods. But it's also designed to support people, after they take it, that it's changing the carbohydrate effects of the meals you're about to eat, meaning it has particular enzymes in it that allow you to slow down the way that carbohydrates are metabolized in your body, which changes everything that goes on. And a lot of people find that using like half servings of that formulation multiple times a day really changes a lot about their craving issues. And then, of course, helping to speed up the changes in that waistline that they're looking for. I think that's one of my first choices.
Exactly. Now, interestingly, the chocolate mint flavor wasn't as popular, but I tell people if they want to order, they have to order a minimum of 6 or half a dozen. We do not have specials on anymore because we were clearing out the other product. That's gone now. So if they want to order it, they have to order 6 minimum, and we will give them free shipping and a price break. But they're not going to have a 30% off like we did when we were having our big clearance sale. The vanilla is very popular because you mix anything with it. You can put chocolate in, you can put fruit in it. So the vanilla is extremely popular. The other product we have taken off is the Ageless Energize, which is the Ageless formula with some of the components that are present, by the way, in our Sports Energy Light. It's the chlorogenic acid, the Vitamin Mineral Max components in there as well. And as I said, the same thing goes with that. The vanilla latte formula of Ageless Energize, if you want to purchase that, even though it's been, quote, discontinued from our regular line, you have to place a specific order for a minimum of 6 in order to get that particular product. These are really good, and I tell people the substitute now is to also add things like the Sports Energy Lights. And what I like to do is I literally have a cup of it on my desks continuously all day long with a couple scoops of the Brain Mag. If you want to boost your metabolism and have smooth energy all day long, replace your electrolytes and protect your body from oxidative stress, there's really nothing like the Sports Energy Light. It's better than the 5-hour energy drink that'll kind of burn you out, or coffee or tea. It's really, really superior. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Because we've got lots of it coming in now, so we're going to have tons of it.
I mean, it'll only take people a day to pretty much appreciate the formulation compared to almost anything they've ever tried when it comes to first energy. So from coffee drinks to, energy drinks people find at, convenience stores to, like you said, the little 5-hour shots or whatever. In America anyway, we spend somewhere near $16 billion annually on drinks like this. And typically the main component being it's caffeine. And what happens, though, is when people take it, they get a quick spike, which everybody notices, but they also get a pretty rapid drop. So in about an hour and a half, they're wondering, what else am I supposed to do? Go back for more coffee, get another drink? What do I have to do? It's because caffeine being metabolized so quickly. And so what's different about this formulation with Sports Energy Light, this has a particular form of caffeine. They're caffeine co-crystals that have been actually bound together with what's called methylated resveratrol. And you find that substance and that nutrient in anti-age Max. But what it does is it changes its half-life significantly. And so they've got human clinical studies showing even at 6 hours, you've got increased ability for concentration and performance and energy. That's at 6 hours. So like you said, that steady, smooth energy people are looking for, that's what this has. But on top of that, it's a very comprehensive formulation with a lot of electrolytes. So if people are taking sports drinks, usually those are very imbalanced. They usually have sodium and potassium. They're not balanced electrolyte drinks at all, even though they kind of claim to be helpful in that area. But most of them are severely lacking. This is a great one for people that really do need to have that electrolyte balance. The other thing that it has is heavy amounts of antioxidant protection. Just something as basic, too, as like vitamin C. This formulation has that pH balanced form of vitamin C we talk about all the time in Power C Plus. This has 500 milligrams of that vitamin C per serving. So that's a great advantage. It also has things like S-acetylglutathione, where that's a really significant antioxidant for our bodies. 50 milligrams per serving in this formulation. And so you're getting protection, you're getting electrolytes, and you're getting very clean, smooth energy, and you're only consuming 95 milligrams of caffeine, which is typically lower than a cup of coffee that a lot of people drink.
Yeah,
and no 20 calories, no sugars, no artificial sugars, no artificial colorings, and all that other junk that oftentimes people are consuming. And I know a lot of people that buy these, drinks at convenience stores often cringe. They're like, yeah, I like the effect. I don't like how it's delivered, but I don't have a good option. There's no excuse once you find out about Sports Energy Light.
Now, if you're trying to change your metabolism to burn off calories too, Leptin Metabolic, LipoFlush, and Green Tea Select, this trio is very powerful to change your metabolism and boost burning off of calories. And tell us about some of the effects, because the Green Tea Select boosts metabolism to burn calories. The Leptin Metabolic actually changes your insulin resistance and increases your ability to peripherally raise metabolic rate. These are very, very powerful in terms of restoring what I call the underlying metabolic substrate of how someone gets their weight down. A lot of people think, well, starvation works. No, you have to fix the metabolic problem, because even if you were to starve yourself down to a weight, you'll rebound, which is why people regain their weight quickly, because they don't fix the metabolic problem. I usually recommend the George Cruz low carbohydrate diet. I think his is probably the most reasonable, not the paleo diet, which I think is a little crazy. And I think low glycemic index is what you're primarily following with the George Cruz diet, but you need to fix your metabolism. You can't just go on a diet and think, I fixed the problem. No, you got a metabolic disorder that needs to be addressed.
I think that's such a huge point, because people do chase the calorie counting, and there's some good success for certain people, but I know there's a lot of people that are so frustrated with regard to they've counted the calories, and it's not doing it for them. And that's where you're saying you've got to fix the metabolic processes that are going on in here. And so there's certain foods you certainly have to remove and stay away from. But in a lot of cases, it's not the calories whatsoever. It's the food choices that you're making, but also supporting these underlying mechanisms. So I love what you said about the leptin metabolic. If leptin is off, what people are going to find is if you're insensitive to your own leptin, which is produced by your fat cells, meant to go to your brain and then trigger basically a balance in your appetite and hunger control. That's one of its primary mechanisms. And people go, well, that is certainly not working. It's like having a busted fuel gauge in your car. You're like, that is not working at all. And so if that's you and you're like, yeah, I can't, my body seems to have no sensor. It just wants to eat all the time. Even when it's healthy, it still wants more of everything. And I would look at leptin metabolic for those individuals as that's a good sign that this could be a helpful formulation for them. The Green Tea Select, what's neat about this one is the increased capability of thermogenic activity. So that fat burning effect that a lot of people want as you're doing, exercise, cardiovascular exercise, you'd love to get that sweat, index increasing and making sure that you're burning off fat. That's a great thing about, something like Green Tea Select is adding, 2 to 4 of those a day. Some people will go higher, but you can certainly feel the effectiveness of what you're getting there. And that's a purified water extracted form of green tea, not a chemical extracted kind of imbalanced version that a lot of people, might be selling at kiosk in your local mall or something like that.
Exactly. One of the things that's often a question people have is anti-aging. And when we come back, we'll talk about anti-aging supplements like Anti-Age Max, Collagen Max, things that will actually reverse the aging process and allow your body to regenerate itself. Again, aging is the basis for 90 to 95% of the disease. The rest of it is probably traumatic in some way or toxicologic. But when we come back, we'll talk about that with Ryan and give you solutions to make you come back. Ryan, one of the things that's very common is anti-aging. Anti-aging for your heart, your liver, your solid organs, your connective tissues. And we start off with anti-aging for your connective tissues throughout your body, Collagen Max. It's just an amazing nutraceutical. And it increases the proline transhydroxylase enzyme to make new collagen make new elastin, make hyaluronic acid polymer in your eyes and your joints and in your skin, increase the strength of your aorta. So we've had people with aortic aneurysms, they start taking collagen max and their aortic aneurysm doesn't expand, so you don't need emergency surgery. But it helps to reduce wrinkles. If you're on it 6 months, the actual research that's published from the original research is 47% reduction in wrinkles in 6 months by just taking this. Now, I tell people whether or not it's tensile strength of ligaments. Then, of course, for anti-aging of joints, joint performance, tendon mender, joint performance for rebuilding joint cartilage, tendon mender for the connective tissues, and, of course, we use our Mountain Red Velvet. Anti-aging for the brain, cognition plus, brain power, synaptin, the use of Nutrifos and Neurogen for remyelination of neural pathways in the brain, and to protect the brain from oxidative stress, cell detox, glutathione, Regenerex, and Nutrimedical to stop oxidative stress, and to increase brain and metabolism, CoQ10 ubiquinol, and acetylcarnitine, which is our ALC-1000 D-ribose, will increase brain ATP levels very, very quickly. And, of course, one of my favorites is now this drink, Sports Energy Light and Brain Mag. And to calm the brain down, I say after 7 p.m., switch off the drinking the Sports Energy Light unless you want to be up all night and you're doing things. You want to switch over to Calm Mind and the Brain Mag, because this is pretty stimulatory, this drink, which I say I have on my desk. I get everything accomplished in the day. Last night, by the way, we were hit with a CME in the Pacific Ocean, just a few hours west of us here, and it kept me up all night. And I took double my dosage of usual nutraceuticals that'll lay me flat as a pancake, and it didn't work, which is really unusual. I take 3 of the melatonin TR, and it's like, bam, you're out, giggle. And it didn't work, so I doubled it, and it still didn't work. So I realized that I've got, a high bioelectric field, and the CME kind of messed it up. You can, if I took more Calm Mind and Brain Mag, I'm sure it would have put me down. It's protecting your brain from oxidative stress is much, much more dangerous lately because we have not only Fukushima, but we have scalar radiation from smart meters and switching mode power supplies. We've got staph vaccines given to children, and we wonder why our children have autism and other problems. So brain aging is a big deal. And, of course, some of the components like anti-age max are in some of our other formulas, such as the Sports Energy Light drink. Let's talk about the anti-aging for the brain. This is a big deal of the body. We talk about collagen max, all these other things for the brain and body. We have formulas like, for solid organs, Nutrifos and Neurogen and everything.
I like
so we have a whole range of things.
I like one that we don't talk all that much about it, but when it comes to brain, one of the things that I think people should think about for protection long term, and it works throughout the body, but particularly in the brain, is something like Regenerex is a really important formulation. Regenerex is, as we've talked about, Dr. Bill, it's an antioxidant formulation, but it relies actually on the science of what's known as the indirect antioxidant activity. So the ingredients that are in there, they include, just like what you were saying, right, the anti-age max material, which is methylated resveratrol, or what's in Nutrimedical, the top-selling formula in the Nutrimed line, is controlled-release alpha-lipoic acid, or you're looking at green tea, curcuminoids. This is a host of some of the greatest things, sulforaphane glucosinolates. This is some of the best and top antioxidants that you can take in, but the interesting thing is it's not because they give up their electrons just readily. That's typically products that have a high ORAC value, if you will, are the ones that give up electrons very readily. What's interesting is these ones that I've just described that are in Regenerex work through a different mechanism, and by enhancing our communication pathway called the NERV2 pathway, they're able to regulate inflammatory processes, regulate detoxification process like phase 1, phase 2 detoxification, stimulate our own native antioxidant production, including things like glutathione in our bodies. And this is a critical pathway that as we age is often compromised. And so rather than just saying you want to load up some general antioxidant in your body, making the choice to use something like Regenerex is probably one of the best moves you can make. And then I'll point people in the direction, too, of overall protection of the body, thinking about something like xenoestrogen detox. Because inside xenoestrogen detox is basically almost using a full serving of Regenerex. But then it's also, what's in there is designed to basically help the body with metabolism of estrogens that we produce, and also protect the body from the exposure of things called xenoestrogens, which are those that they're chemicals from outside the body that mimic estrogens that we find in drugs, plastics, fuels, pesticides that we're bombarded by daily. And so overall, looking at these protections from the brain all the way through the body, I like Regenerex, and really, I guess if you had to weigh it out, which one, if you had to choose one or the other, I really love the xenoestrogen detox. It's one of the top things you can do ongoing to protect your body, teenage on up to elderly.
Yeah, that's a very good combination of nutraceuticals to try to help people get well. And of course, a lot of people think, well, there's an alternative to this drug or another nutraceutical that they can get elsewhere. One of the things that I find pretty frustrating is once I give people advice and give them a specific list of nutraceuticals, sometimes they'll go shopping and thinking, I think I can get something better than what Deagle recommended because it sounds the same. And I'm thinking, that's not very smart. You're not going to get the same nutraceutical effects by getting something that sounds like what I recommended, because they're not the same. And that's what's important. People understand that when we give you a nutraceutical, this is a very, very high-tech, I call 7-star molecular complex. We call them nutraceuticals because they're the quality and the reliability of a pharmaceutical, but they're all natural molecules, bioconcentrated, super high concentrations. And what's interesting is that most of our nutraceuticals would violate the Codex Alimentarius, which is food rules developed by a Nazi in prison in Holland back in the 1960s, who actually was trying to work with the drug companies, primarily I think to get himself out of prison, but working with the drug companies to come up with rules so they can get rid of nutraceuticals completely, because the drug companies have known that eventually with a combination of genetics and functional metabolism and functional medicine, that many, and I'd say 80 to 90% of the drugs out there would no longer not only be useful, they'd be considered toxic, and nutraceuticals usually are considered non-toxic because they work with the body and normal metabolism. They're not modified with fluoride groups or chloride groups or toxicologically modified so the body can't metabolize them. So when you're trying to do things like you don't want to normalize your bowel, you want our quality berberstatin and Allicin-Med, which is 200 milligrams more power than Alamed at a much better price. And these are going to get rid of clearopathogens. When you look at our living probiotic, don't think, well, I can find a good probiotic. No, you're not going to find one that's equivalent to living probiotic, the Brazil 6 strain from the Pasteur Institute, or the most powerful probiotic on the planet, Living Probiotic Ultra. So if you want to heal, you have to stick to the recommendations Dr. Bill gives you and get our nutraceuticals, not substitutes, elsewhere. So when you hear our Cardiovasc, which was Cardivite, and you hear about commercials for Heart and Body, Extendivite, or Heart, these other nutraceuticals, forget it. Brian, I forgot that we mentioned earlier when we were talking about trying to get trim and slim for bathing suits and pool season, carbo blocker. And we have if you're, let's say, seeing a conventional doctor, they would probably give you something like metformin and a carbohydrate blocking enzyme. It's actually a pharmaceutical that's considered an enzymatic drug. But our carbo blocker is totally natural. It'll actually block carbohydrates. It's present in the glycemics, vanilla, which we continue to carry. And it'll lower your insulin output, which is really important because a lot of people aren't aware. It's not just the peak of sugar going on. If your insulin takes off like a rocket, it drives the production of fatty acids that can cause fatty liver, which eventually, by the way, can cause hepatitis. In fact, I had a consult earlier this week from a pastor that actually had an international radio show, got himself into liver failure because he had diabetes long-standing and didn't control his fatty liver, caused by elevated blood insulin. Insulin is just as toxic long-term because it stimulates a thing called vascular endothelial growth factor in your eye, can make you blind because the vessels that grow due to the effect of VEGF are very fragile in the back of the eye, and if they rupture underneath the Bruch's membrane, you can go blind. If they rupture in your brain, you have a ruptured aneurysm because you have weak vessel walls, you have a stroke. So it's not just a minor thing to have elevated blood insulin. If you have elevated blood insulin, also it affects the glomeruli, and you can end up with glomerular leakage, and eventually the proteins leak out and destroy the glomeruli. So it's important. That's why we use things like carbo carnosine, which is one of our nutraceuticals, and ultrathymine B1 to protect the kidney. But people need to realize that when we use these nutraceuticals and these protocols, we're trying to restore normal function, and we do. I mean, when I have really compliant patients, I had one just yesterday. I sent out this latest QRMA report, and this person is a very successful business person in Georgia, and he's like extremely anal, like I am, very, very much details person, and he's followed the protocols to the letter of all the nutraceuticals, and man, he's already 3/4 of his problems in a little over a year are gone. I mean, he has a pristine level. I don't think if he was a fetus, he would be healthier on his tests. There's a few areas that are still remaining that need to be dealt with, but 3/4 of his problems are just gone. And when you look at his results, you say, wow, I don't have teenagers that look better than this. And that's why I tell people, when you start taking your nutraceuticals, it's going to drift or change. In 3 months blocks, I usually tell people, you're going to see a significant change in your needs. And if you're not giving an updated history and an updated QRMA, you're going to need to change. And you also will notice that you're probably using a lot less nutraceuticals, but going to be targeted for what you need. One of the most important combinations are anti-inflammatories, like Cell Defense, Nutri-Defense, which is the anhydrous polyphenol, and Inflamex. And of course, we also have the seroflozyme, which is serapeptase, silkworm enzyme alone, but I like the one that's the Inflamex because it has both. It has both the Wobenzyme N formula, 10 times more powerful than the old original, plus serapeptase silkworm enzyme for interfascial adhesions, joint inflammation, spine inflammation, discs, tendons, tenosynovitis, plantar fasciitis. It's amazing. So let's talk about anti-inflammatories for a minute, because I think it's something that people, they want to reach for, Tylenol, which I tell people, don't ever, under any circumstances, take Tylenol. Period. Number 2, don't ever take non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. It'll cause gastric erosions, but it can shut down your kidneys. I can't tell you how many diabetics took either Cytotec or Cytotec and a non-steroidal, and they end up with, hey, it was nice knowing you, kidneys. See you later. And their kidneys shut down. So it's a really big problem, and the knucklehead doctors out there are not going to pay attention until after they've screwed up some patients. And when they do, they just go on and hurt the next patient. And you tell them they haven't even measured their levels of microalbumin in the urine of these diabetics before they hammered them with a non-steroidal. But if you're taken over the counter or given by your doctor non-steroidal, you're going to harm yourself very badly. You're going to damage your heart muscle, you're going to damage your brain, and you very well could shut off your kidneys. So our anti-inflammatories will not do that. They'll do the opposite. They'll protect your body. Cell Defense and Inflamex. Let's talk about them for a minute.
Well, the Cell Defense formulation takes curcumin and makes sure that it's, one, extremely potent, 350 milligrams of curcuminoids per tablet, but it's also delivered in a unique format. Two key aspects there. To maximize its bioavailability, it's in a controlled release format, so it goes out over 6 to 8 hours in the body. And then it's also enhanced with the material known as bioperin, which has been shown to increase curcumin's absorption in humans by 2,000% when you just keep your curcuminoids available when you have bioperin. And so by putting these two together and control releasing the mechanism really have a profound way to make a major impact for people that need curcumin. And it works in so many different levels, as you say, the inflammatory aspects, the antioxidant aspect, the NERC2, regulating aspects that we discussed earlier. It really is dynamic, but typically if you're just buying curcumin and you don't have any clue about bioavailability and how you're going to get it across, it's probably not doing all that much for you.
Exactly. Now, topically, one of my favorites is the curcumin cream. It's a liposomal curcumin. In fact, I also use it for my formula for I call the cellulite formula. And I talked about this briefly the other day. I put in that cellulite formula nutriodine for our monatomic iodine. I put in Vascucare L-carnitine, CoQ10, puncture at least 4 CoQ10 soft gels to put in the cream. What you're trying to do is you're trying to increase mitochondrial metabolism of your adipocytes in the areas and the tissues that have low metabolic rates. Because when you develop weight, say around your middle or underneath the skin, it's basically those tissues are actually in what's called metabolic stasis. They've actually shut off. They're not metabolically active. That's why the temperature of them is significantly lower than deeper tissues. They're not generating heat. They're not generating energy. So they're just kind of like in a storage state. And when you start injecting by liposomal forms, these are the nutraceuticals, and I'm going to post up the full formula up on for you to make your own cream. But I call it my cellulite formula. I think it's more powerful. I've looked online to see what's available at all the different cosmetic places, and they're all garbage, to be honest with you. The stuff that I'm going to put together here, you can actually mix up yourself at a fraction of the cost at home. Just have to have an empty jar for cream, and you'll have a much more powerful cellulite formula than anything you're going to buy in the store or even at a pharmacy. That's kind of interesting and cool, isn't it? That you can kind of mix up at home your own cellulite formula. And it works. It works like a charm. As soon as you put it on, and within hours, your body said, oh, the water's going away. Because there's always water accumulation. The fat's burning off. You can actually feel the heat of the tissues actually as it raises the metabolic rate, and it's burning it off, that fat. And a lot of time people, especially women, they have certain pockets. It may only be 10 or 15 pounds overweight, but there's certain places where on their lateral thighs or around a part of their middle, they just can't lose that weight. Well, you start applying a cellulite cream, it's going to make a big difference to that. The other areas I'd like to talk about is the area of how to protect against radiation. And, of course, we talked about that in the past. We want to use mitothyroid for your thyroid gland. You want to use Nutrimedical. You want to use Minerals Plus that contains a lot of the minerals to protect your mitochondria, and Vitamineral Max. A lot of people aren't aware of the fact that the mitochondrial stress that's going on now from Fukushima Daiichi is killing the North Pacific. It's also going to start gradually killing you, too, out there. You might not think it's hurting you yet, but you're still in your zone of compensation. At some point, you're getting enough mitochondrial degradation, or you're old enough or weak enough, which is why it affects the elderly and the unborn. They're particularly fragile, 10 million times more toxically affected by radiation, the unborn fetuses and young babies, than the average adult that's pretty well formed and growing really slowly because they're 40, 50, 60 years old. So mitothyroid is number one, Nutriodine, and of course we mentioned our antioxidants, Cell Detox, Glutathione, Regenerex, and Nutri-Trala. If you want to protect yourself, then you have to rebuild your tissues with phospholipids, Nutrifos, and Neurogen. Of course, we mentioned some of our other growth hormone things such as Microdose and Collagen Max, Her Majesty. I get punchy toward the end of an hour we're doing with Ryan. Sometimes some of the things get comical. I get people that, and I get literally not just one or two really tough cases. Sometimes, like today, I got dozens. And people say, why are you so busy? I'm saying, well, because I offer free consults around the world, and I get people from Malaysia to Russia to all over the world that send me emails and say, help me, help me. And, of course, they let their local knucklehead doctor do all kinds of things. People say, Dr. Deagle, you shouldn't say that. I have the social skills slightly above a pet rock, so I will say things the way they are, even if it offends you out there. Especially if you're a doctor that thinks that your MD means you're a magnificent deity. It doesn't. You're not a magnificent. You might have more dough, though. MD also stands for more dough. So, maybe. But now that we've got Obamacare, it actually means more depression. Because a lot of doctors are depressed because they're now totally enslaved, and even if they had only marginal ethics, now they're in what we call shock therapy. Well, anyway, this is one poor lady. She's got atrial fibrillation, and I'm just going to give a list of the drugs that she's on and give you an idea just how crazy this is and how we give Nutrimeds instead. She's on amiodarone, which is a pacerone. It's for stopping arrhythmias. What she should be on is magnesium glycinate malate. She's on amlodipine, a calcium channel blocker, which you should never give anybody. And, in fact, it'll shrink your brain and drop your IQ. In fact, there's published studies that if you take it for 5 years, all these classes of calcium channel blockers will not only swell up your legs, which is not good if you're in congestive heart failure, if you've got atrial fibrillation, it's high risk, but it'll also shrink your IQ and make your brain shrink away from your skull on a CT scan. Atorvastatin, which is a HMG-CoRe reductase inhibitor. Why not just take omega cod liver liquid? Because atorvastatin will actually dysmyelinate your brain, making you demented, can cause you to go into heart failure and interfere with your liver metabolism, etc. And actually has been proven studies now that it'll actually make women turn diabetic, and they're now doing studies trying to prove that it'll do the same thing to men. But 10% of women who are put on HMG choline reductase inhibitors within the first 2 years will turn diabetic, even if they weren't before. Furosemide, another very powerful diuretic, safe if you're trying to unload somebody from fluid if they have congestive heart failure. But the problem is it demineralizes. So if you're not taking calcium magnesium like bone generator, if you're not taking magnesium potassium citrate, you're going to get significant electrolyte problems. And if you get hypomagnesemia, everything, including your ability for glutathione peroxidase to protect you, is gone. So I tell people, cut the furosemide dosage down and increase the levels of Power C and full vitamin K2. Hydralazine, this is a vasodilator, and I tell people natural ACE inhibitors include things like Allicin Med, believe it or not, our cardiovasc, and of course Supernox, which is increased nitric oxide. Very important, Supernox. Metoprolol, succinate. Well, metoprolol, if you give it to male, it makes you 4 things: fat, bald, impotent, and stupid. And if you give it to a female, it won't make you impotent, but it will make the other 3 things happen. And then this poor lady was also not only in a proton pump inhibitor, but an H2 blocker for her acid. So she's not going to digest any minerals. So if you want to protect your stomach lining, you want to take GastroHeal. You don't want to be taking omeprazole and ranitidine. That's craziness. Especially if you're also taking a blood thinner. She's on Xarelto. And there's giant lawsuits in Texas and other states now with drooling attorneys like Rottweilers suing the heck out of doctors that are stupid enough to give this drug because a percentage of people will bleed to death. And many others just bump into something and they get massive bleeding, dermal hematomas into their skin, or they bump their head a subdural hematoma. Tylenol. Why is anybody giving Tylenol under any circumstances? The renal units are full of people that have either 2 things: diabetes, or they took Tylenol. The same with the liver transplant units. They're all full of people that took Tylenol. This is a very dangerous drug that should be struck from the formulary completely and should be never. Same with non-steroidals. Ibuprofen, Cytotec. You give a diabetic Cytotec, see you later, bye-bye, no more kidneys. And I just don't understand. Why aren't they taking Inflamax? Why aren't they taking Cell Defense? Which will not do that, or seroflozyme, which is a straight the silkworm enzyme. I like Inflamax and Cell Defense. I can't understand it. And then, of course, if you get joint inflammation, leptin metabolic combined with that will reduce osteoarthritic joint inflammation. Ryan, you have any comments? I mean, when you look at this long list, this poor lady, you know what they did is they added another drug and then she fell down and fainted. I'm thinking, not surprising, they're trying to pre-embalm her and they're succeeding.
Well, my only thought
this is one of many cases I have just today. I mean, one of many. I'll tell you what, in my inbox, just for me to respond to people's emails, how many emails do you think I have today to respond to?
Yeah, I don't know, a couple hundred probably.
Exactly, almost 200. People say, Dr. Deagle, can you answer all these?
I know how busy you are.
Yeah.
And I think, what people, as they listen to this and they're like, I'm like that, or I'm heading down that road, it's like, you know what, you can change the direction. That's what's so wonderful about what you do, Dr. Bill, is you really change it. You can give them alternatives. You can take the burden away from the body, and they don't have to get stuck in that, that medical nightmare of taking drugs that end up causing worse effects than what they were originally trying to figure out.
Yeah, well, what I find amazing is that doctors are not changing. And by the way, it's not just an American problem. I get the same stupid comments going on in China, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Australia, in Canada. I see stupid medicine everywhere. I don't think it's localized just to America. It's particularly bad here because pharma is a lot more powerful here. So there's more alternative medicine in Australia where the primary doctors give alternative medicines, but then they're now absorbing Codex Alimentarius. So to try to get things in even like silver and iodine and even high dose of vitamins is like, what we do, of course, we do private shipments directly to customers. So we have a tremendous amount of people in Australia, New Zealand that order, or Europe. We're trying to get more than what I call microscopic dosages of nutrients is literally impossible because they say, if you exceed this dosage, it's toxic. No, it's not. It's actually metabolically going to reverse the problem. So the people that came up with that thesis are criminals. Psychotic, I call scientists. They're not scientists. They're scientistic. Scientistic means it looks like science, smells like science, but it's actually BS. And scientistic means you're a criminal but you cover it up because you wear a white coat. Pretty bad, isn't it?
It sure is.
It is. I call it scientistic. You like that term? It's like my term scamtastic. It's a scam and it's fantastic, but so you combine the two words together and mush them together like a s'more, and it's become scamtastic. It's my Deagle s'more type words. and people say, well, yeah, why are you laughing, Deagle? I say, because I got a lot of emails after I do an appointment after my day-to-day. I got a long, late day trying to answer all these emails because I got a mountain. I mean, I've had a huge surge and people panicking all over the world say, oh, hey, Deagle will do this for me. He'll do it for free. I said, well, at some point, I'm going to stretch beyond my physical and mental capacity, even though I'm, I can say faster than most, but I'm not the Flash. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Yeah, and you try to train doctors. I say, look, I'll train you, doctor, out there, free. All you do is, and people say, well, call my doctor. I said, are you kidding? I'm going to try to call your doctor and convince him on the phone when he hasn't called me. I said, if your doctor will call me, I'll train him or her or their trainer or whatever. But there's no way I'm going to call your doctor to tell them what to do. If they call me, it's very likely they're open enough that I can train them and say, doctor, I can ask them a series of what I like to do it with my Scottish and Doggerland Celtic background. I'm going to ask them, A-X-E, not ask them a question with my war axe of questions. And it gets kind of dicey because after a while they realize they call these incredible shrinking doctor. They realize, ooh, I thought I had all these PhDs and MDs and everything else. And like, ooh, I realize I don't know anything. And people say, Dr. Deagle, you sound arrogant. No, I'm not. I'm just a very inquisitive person that's really ticked off the medical profession killing people. And it is. I mean, as much as I would like to say otherwise, 20% of medications are appropriate 20% of the time. The rest of it's medicine. 1/3 of surgery, even according to the American Murder Association, I call it the AMA, otherwise known as the American Medical Association, are inappropriate medicine and dangerous and not certified, including things like cardiac pathway ablation and lots of other stupid treatments that doctors do every day and go ka-ching, ka-ching. Yes, I am going to go boating in my new yacht. Hard to believe, but true, isn't it, Ryan?
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah.
So,
but I'm glad,
so if you're out there and you
Dr.
think,
Bill, glad you're here.
If I was to give one little tagline for this hour is, follow our wellness conditions, consult us, listen to the program. We're going to make you, as I say, an expert on principles and practice. You don't have to know all the details of medicine or wellness, but we'll make you a doctor if you listen.